One of my most popular and viewed videos was the video on early Proto-Germanic and how the reconstruction can change depending on what kind of stage or period of the language you are describing. The ending of that video contained a short sample of an early form of pre-Proto-Germanic, reconstructed thanks to Konrad at Germanic Gems. Since the video has been out for a few months, there's been a few discussions and ideas how the reconstruction can be changed. And the first video didn't really contain a thorough explanation on what kind of stage of the language it represented in terms of sound changes and so on. So I decided to make a short video to update and to also describe it a bit more in detail. The language described at the end of the video was essentially the language stage just before traditional reconstructed Proto-Germanic, let's say around 600 BC. Maybe a bit earlier or later, we can't really know based on limited evidence. But it's essentially the language just before Grimm's Law happens. So this kind of language has final nasals preserved, final short a and e from Proto-indo-european preserved, the original stress placement for Proto-indo-european such as in verbs and so on, no Werners law because voicing of fricatives in those positions such as s and z was not yet phonemized due to the stress. Proto-indo-european a and e were still distinct. No I mutation of e or e to I or iu. Long Proto-Germanic o was not yet rounded and was probably some kind of unrounded back vowel, probably something like o. So this is what we used as guidelines to reconstruct a short sentence, roughly translated as I know that there were 3 of those men in the army. Since the video came out a few months ago, there has been some changes and updates and corrections to the reconstruction. We have changed the word final M to N, since this seems to align better with the internal reconstruction of Germanic. Final T in the third person past is reintroduced since it wasn't around in the first reconstruction. It should be there. Also, the last reconstruction had a suffix accent in the A stem genitive plural, but that doesn't really make sense and it should be in the root. However, the final vowel should have a circumflex accent or something similar, which means that only the demonstrative ancestor to English there is due to Werners law stressed on the ending, but not the noun counterpart. To give an example of how the language changes over more than 1,000 years, I will show you the pre-Proto-Germanic or Paleo-Germanic around, let's say, 600 BC, late Proto-Germanic, roughly according to the typical Donald Ringe reconstruction, which is basically around the same time as the earliest runic inscriptions, or around the same time as Classical Latin, and Old Norse from around the 900s. Waida tad treyesh taishaon weron in Karjai wa shunte. Ekawait sat srij thaijon weron in Karjai wa jun. Yakwait at srij thaira wera I herri waru. And as a bonus, I will also have the same sentence in Old English and Gothic. Ikwet sata srij thije were in harja wesun. Ichwat sat sri thara wera in herje weron.